Welcome back on Ernestine. We are on the last leg of your journey, and we are going to pick up where we left off with Destination 2, which is Ireland. Now, I'm purely speculating here, but I'm guessing that the reason you have more than Obama is because he gets his from his mother's side, whereas you get your Irish DNA from both your mother and father's side, and your mother, grandmother, grandfather, and great-grandfather have Irish DNA ties that are much closer to you than Obama's was to him.
Moneygall, Ireland is a village of just 300 people. But today, 3,000 are expected when the President and Mrs. Obama visit this tiny hamlet, which is the source of Mr. Obama's Irish roots. His great-great-great-grandfather, a shoemaker named Falmouth Carney, left here for America in 1850. And the connection is as important to Ireland as it is to the President.
The Irish are spread everywhere, and to have a connection to the President of the United States is brilliant.
Businesses and homes have spruced up for the visit. There's a fresh coat of paint on just about everything.
Well, it's surreal. It's Moneygall has never seen anything like it. Ireland probably hasn't really seen anything like it.
We're just going to enjoy the moment and embrace it and make it the best party we ever had and throw a party for him.
The President and First Lady are scheduled to meet more than a dozen of Mr. Obama's very distant relatives, including Henry Healy, who the genealogists reckon is Mr. Obama's 8th cousin. Healy's friends now teasingly refer to him as Henry VIII.
Our relationship is goes back as far as 1761. where there was a marriage between the Healy family and the Carneys. But once we discovered the link with Senator Obama at the time, we were absolutely delighted. We watched the debates, we followed his campaign, and he was absolutely fantastic.
Mr. Obama is the 6th American president to visit here. He follows in the footsteps of Kennedy, Nixon, Reagan, Clinton, and George W. Bush. And all were able to trace their heritage back to the Emerald Isle.
I'm convinced it was the Irish who found them roots. They'll find roots for anybody that they want to find. It's tradition in Ireland to find roots for the most important people in the world.
Destination 3, Scotland, the Scottish Highlands.
Many of Scotland's most famous items, kilts, tartans, and bagpipes, were actually developed elsewhere. Kilts originated in Ireland, tartans have been found in Bronze Age Central Europe, and bagpipes are thought to have come from ancient Central Asia. The city of Aberdeen in Scotland is famous for its granite buildings. Nearly every building in the center of the city is made of the material. Because of this, the suitable radiation levels for the city are slightly higher than they would be in other cities in the UK. Edinburgh Zoo is famous for its penguin parade. The parade has been a major attraction since 1951, when a Gentoo penguin led a few of its friends to march the walkways after an enclosure door was left open. Open in 2002, the Falkirk Wheel is the only rotating boat lift of its kind in the world and is regarded as an engineering landmark for Scotland. The final design is claimed to have been inspired by a Celtic double-headed spear, a vast turning propeller of a Clydebank-built ship, the rib cage of a whale, and the spine of a fish. The structure contains over 15,000 bolts, which are matched with 45,000 bolts holes. The shortest scheduled flight in the world is 1.5 miles long, from Westray to Papa Westray in the Orkney Islands of Scotland. The journey takes 1 minute 14 seconds to complete. A return ticket costs £39 British. The famous shaggy-haired cattle with their origins in the Scottish Highlands are the oldest registered breed of cow in the world, with first written records of the animal dating back to 1884. One particularity of Scots law is that the criminal trial may end in one of three verdicts: guilty, not guilty, or not proven. The not proven verdict may be referred to as the Scottish verdict abroad. The flag of Scotland is a white X-shaped cross, which represents the cross of the patron saint of Scotland, St. Andrew, on a blue field. The flag is called the saltire or the St. Andrew's Cross. Gretna Green, the Scottish town nearest the English border, has a reputation as Scotland's Las Vegas. Many young couples from England choose to dash across the border to get married there because under the Scottish law, people do not need to get their parents' consent at the age of 16, whereas in England, parental consent is required until one is 18.
I am a huge Outlander fan. Unfortunately for all you Outlander fans, the magical Craignadoon stones near Inverness in the Scottish Highlands that transport you into the past or the future are not real. I was so bummed out to find out that it was just a prop for the movie. Oh well. Based on Ancestry.com's findings, your Scottish DNA is relatively recent, particularly in the Scottish Highlands area of Scotland. They suggest that you may even have closer relatives there that are alive and well today. Again, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe this may be due to the fact that you received DNA from both your mother and father, who have strong Scottish DNA that are relatively close in their lineages, their parents and their grandparents. So that could be why that's the case. Destination 4: England, Wales, and Southwestern Europe. I'm not going to linger here long because you've already been to Buckingham Palace and met the Queen, and the Tower of London knows who you are too, all too well. But that's our little secret, and I won't tell if you won't. So let's talk food. Irish, Scottish, and British food. They share so many things in common, and each has its own delicacy that they claim credit for. But so many are interchangeable in that part of Europe that I've put them all together in this section. Some of them are obviously Irish, some are obviously Scottish, and some are obviously English. But in that section of the world, you could get any of these in just about any of these places, and they each put their own little twist on it. There's Irish fish chowder with soda bread being a very popular item in Ireland. Irish fish chowder is one of their delicacies. They are on the seashore, so they have fresh, the best and the freshest seafood. Traditional meat pies and pasties, or pasties. They are also to be had in either one of these places, each putting their own twist on it. They are usually done with lamb, beef, pork, chicken, or a mixture of those. And then we have the legendary fish and chips. When Marilyn and I took a birthday visit to Europe, and when we were in London, I had fish and chips. I think that's where I fell in love with the salt and vinegar combo. Oh my goodness. And in England, as in most places, they do wrap them in newspaper. If you like savory, which your DNA indicates that you do, you would love these. So crisp, salty, and vinegary. They're excellent. Anyway, moving on. There's beef and Guinness stew, because Guinness is a big drink in Ireland. Actually, all alcohol is big in Ireland. Shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie is another one that I don't really know if this is traditionally English, Irish, or Scottish, but you can get it in any one of those locations. It's typically made, or traditionally it was made with leftovers from meal. Its origins come from using leftovers from the dinner before or the night before, using all the leftover vegetables and meats and things to create this delectable stew. Haggis. Haggis is the national dish of Scotland. Haggis is normally made up of the following ingredients: a sheep's pluck, its heart, liver, and lungs, minced with onions, oatmeal, suet, salt, and spices, all mixed with a stock and traditionally boiled in the animal's stomach for around an hour. As unpleasant as this may sound, the end result is a culinary success. So the encasement that it's boiled in is kind of like chitterlings, or chitlins, as we say. Finally, there are Scotch eggs. Despite the name, this is traditionally a British dish. You boil an egg, it's rolled in sausage, and then breadcrumbs, seasoned breadcrumbs, and baked until crispy. My understanding is that the best way to do this is a soft-boiled egg, so when you bite into it, the egg squishes in your mouth. I'm not really big on squishy egg, so I would probably boil my egg hard-boiled, but it's really up to a matter of how could all of this come to be? Well, let's do a wrap-up. While researching the family tree book, I came across inklings of the origins of all of these names: Crawford, McIntosh, McShepherd, Roberts, Neely, Nave, Welsh, etc. Both your parents' parents were from Alabama, North Carolina, and South Carolina, eventually moving to Mississippi. Perhaps their parents' parents were from those places as well. In researching the origins of the family names, I found that they were, of course, of various European lineages, as most American names were during that time. My first thought was that these were just names handed down from slave owners. In the 15th through 19th centuries, Europeans would buy and ship slaves to the Western Hemisphere from markets across West Africa. The number of enslaved people sold to the New World varied throughout the slave trade. As for the distribution of slaves from regions of activity, certain areas produced far more enslaved people than others. Between 1650 and 1900, 10.2 million enslaved Africans arrived in the Americas from the following regions in various proportions. Note that many of these slave trade regions are where links to your DNA is found today. The areas in red indicate locations in West Africa that show matches to your DNA today. These were all some of the busiest slave trading locations in West Africa along the Atlantic coastline. All of the places in West Africa where you have DNA ties are mostly on the Atlantic coastline of West Africa. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, the transatlantic slave trade was a bustling enterprise. Europeans from all over Europe bought slaves from these regions and via the transatlantic slave route, Middle Passage, brought them to the Americas, to work as free labor on their plantations growing cotton, tobacco, coffee, indigo, etc. Some of your ancestors were among them. Without going into the history of this era, suffice it to say that some of those slaves who ended up in Alabama, North Carolina, and South Carolina ultimately migrated to Mississippi around the early to mid-19th century, thus giving you your European DNA that was passed down from slave owner to slave and ultimately passed down to you. Stories like our Aunt Effie Price and others in our family are a dime a dozen in Black families today, especially Southern families. So our European masters of old passed down more than surnames to our ancestors. Your DNA clearly shows that bloodlines were also passed down. Today, all of this is common knowledge and not really a mystery anymore. However, the English, Irish, and Scottish DNA in your chart is also right there in the names of your parents and grandparents. Okay, we're going to close out on something fun. These are just some of your personal DNA traits. This is not all of them, and you'll receive the PDF of the complete set of traits, but I thought I'd share just a few with you here. Your DNA determines that you are more likely to be able to match a musical pitch. I know for a fact that that's true. I've been to more than one family reunion where you and your 11 siblings get together and sing, and oh my God, you stop what you're doing. You guys were so good singing a cappella. Anyway, so I know that that one's true. You are more likely than average to have had a bunion. You are less likely to get dandruff. You are likely to have brown or hazel eyes. You are more likely than average to be afraid of heights. That's interesting. You are less likely to have a fear of public speaking. You are likely to have a ring finger that's longer than the other fingers. Less likely than average to have flat feet. You are likely to have a little freckling. You are less likely to have thick hair. You are more likely than not to prefer chocolate over vanilla ice cream. How do they know that? You are less likely to hate chewing sounds. And how do they know that? You are less likely to experience motion sickness. You are likely to have lighter skin. You are less likely to have stretch marks. Yippee! You are likely to prefer salty and savory over sweet. You are likely to have no unibrow. I know that's true. And you are likely to wake up around 6:53 a.m. The precision of this science is just amazing. Anyway, those are just some of your personal traits. I thought that you'd get a kick out of that. There are more, and that will come to you with the other information in your PDF files. I so hope you've enjoyed this journey. In closing, I want to say I love you dearly, and I'll leave you with this thought. If all the people around the world could chill for just a minute and dance with Africa, the world would be a better place. In search of that quest, I managed to find a few descendants of your possible ancestors to take us home. I'll close with this, the song from Africa, Jerusalem.
Ooh, muso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami